Stephen Smith. I'm with Christian Leadership Partners. We provide leadership solutions for both profit and nonprofit organizations for coaching, teaching, and mentoring. We want to make sure that we have the tools necessary to help you be successful in your efforts as a leader. I encourage you to take a look at our website, christianleadershippartners.org. I think that you'll see we have a lot of tools that are available for you to make that difference, not only in your life, but also within your organization. What we wanted to do is we wanted to provide you with a free 30-day training program that takes a look at the leadership of the kings of Israel. Why would we do that? Well, there are three reasons, really. The first reason is that we can look at the good things and the bad things that they did. If I can identify what good things they did and what negative things that they did, then I know that I can apply those things to my life as far as the good things go, and I can cut the negative things out of my life. The second reason is that I can look at the historical record of what we have available to us for the results of their decisions. So in their planning, their preparation, their execution phases, and in the results of what they achieved, they're all written down for us. And we can see that armed with those things as a leader, I can make all the difference in my own life because I can see the results of what their actions are going to do. So what we want to do is make sure that we're taking the leadership skills and attributes and the things that we have available to us and go out and be that leader that God wants us to be. So today what we want to do is we want to take a look at King Ahaz. King Ahaz was a king of Judah, and he was probably one of the worst kings that there ever was. In fact, he was one of the worst kings that Judah ever had. His grandson was pretty bad as well, Manasseh, but we see that he did a lot of the same things, but he repented. Ahaz didn't. Ahaz never changed what he did. Even when he was successful, he still never changed the things that he did. We want to make sure that we as leaders can identify those things that we need to change in our lives so that we can become that much better and not just keep on doing the same old things and receiving the same bad results of those things. So let's take a look at 2 Kings 16, 2 and 3. And it says, Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king. He reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. He did not do what was pleasing in the sight of the Lord his God, as his ancestor David had done. Instead, he followed the example of the kings of Israel, even sacrificing his own son in the fire. In this way, he followed the detestable practices of the pagan nations the Lord had driven from the land ahead of the Israelites. So we see that King Ahaz went out, and even though his father successfully ruled as a king that worshiped the Lord his God, he didn't do away with idol worship, and that was the downfall of King Ahaz. He went right into idol worship, went right into Baal worship, and went right into sacrificing his own sons. We have to recognize this simple fact that King Ahaz was not successful because of that. The other thing is that he never changed, as I said earlier. We want to identify the negative things in our lives and stop them and change the way that we think. We want to change the way that we act. And then what we'll do is we'll change the results that we get. So let's take a look at how we can do those things rather than continuing on in the negative aspects of that. To give his son credit, his son never picked up where King Ahaz left off. 2 Kings 16, 7 and 8 says, King Ahaz, when he was attacked, sent this message to King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria with the messenger. I am your servant and your vessel. Come up and rescue me from the attacking armies of Aram and Israel. Then Ahaz took the silver and gold from the temple of the Lord and the palace treasury and sent it as payment to the Assyrian king. So he thought that he could buy the loyalty of the people that could help him out. What are you doing to try and get people to become loyal to you? Are you sending them things? Are you giving them things? Are you promising them things that will benefit them rather than benefit you or your organization? What are the things that you're stripping bare within your organization that you should be keeping so that you be successful in the things that you know that you're supposed to be doing in? So we want to make sure that we're doing these things, and King Ahaz definitely didn't do that. 2 Chronicles 28:20 tells us, so when King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria arrived, he attacked Ahaz instead of helping him. So he gets all this money from Ahaz. Ahaz goes up and says, hey, glad to see you. And he comes in and he attacks them as well. So not only does he have to fight the other army, now he has to fight this other king from Assyria. And he's completely decimated. He has all these difficulties and all these problems, and every single thing that he thought was a good thing turned out to not be so good whatsoever. And in fact, we can see that Ahaz was not a strategic thinker. We see a lot of these strategically thinking leaders that look forward to the things that are happening, and they prepare for those things with the assets that they have available to them. As leaders are not doing that. We want to make sure that we understand who our friends are and who our enemies are, and make sure that we're not emboldening our enemies. So we can see that as Ahaz went through as a king, he continued to have problems. He continued to have issues. He continued to have all these different problems in his life, and it was mostly because he continued to reject the Lord's guidance. You're going to find that you have a difficult time in your organization if you're continually rejecting the people over you, their orders, their regulations. If you're constantly breaking the rules, if you're constantly doing the things that they don't want you to do, you're going to find that you're going to have difficulties and trouble in everything that you set your hands to. So we want to make sure that we're not doing that. We can do that by reviewing the regulations in the organization. We can make sure that we're establishing good positive norms for the people underneath us, and we're leading in a way that is consistent with what our organization wants us to do. In 2 Chronicles 28:24, we can see that the king took the various articles from the temple of God and broke them into pieces. He shut down the doors of the Lord's temple so the Lord could worship him. He set up altars to pagan gods and great pillars. Now it's important for us to be able to see this. Now this is 2 Chronicles 28:24. This is towards the end of King Ahaz's reign, and he's completely rejected the Lord at this point. And I don't know if he's blaming others for his downfall and all these terrible things that are happening within the kingdom. A lot of times what happens is that we as leaders will end up blaming others for our own downfall because we just don't either want to accept it or we don't believe that we're that bad after all. But a lot of times we are that bad after all, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we change the way that we're doing things and we refocus our efforts in a positive way. We need to make sure that we're taking responsibility for our own actions rather than blaming other people, especially our superiors or our subordinates. If I can make sure that I take these things in my own and say, look, this is my fault that this happened, as a leader, people respect that. And we want to make sure that we can do that as leaders. Let's take a look at some of the successes and failures of King Ahaz. Now, we want to make sure that we can see this. We can see that he was selected as king, so he had to have some kind of good attributes, and we can count that as one of his successes. We can also see that his sons was one of the best kings of Judah. And in fact, he followed one of the best kings of Judah in Hezekiah, or Uzziah. We know that these different problems, these different issues that he ran into caused him to fail in different ways, and we can see that in his failures. His failures were that he increased idol worship rather than taking it away in Israel. He brought Baal worship back and shut down the temple. These are all things that God had told him not to do, and yet he's continued to do that. And then finally, he was not very tactically sound, or we know that his strategic thinking was not quite on point the way that it should have been. So what we want to do is we are good strategic thinkers, look at a couple of questions that we can ask ourselves to see if we're making a difference in the lives of those around us. The first question is how can you follow the successful principles of those who are before you without making the same mistakes? We want to make sure that we're not making the same mistakes as those in front of us. We can follow along with these processes and these procedures if we know that we can follow these successful things that they did. We got to stay away from these negative things as we go along. The next thing, yesterday we looked at our ethical decision making. Let's look at our positive decision making as well. Now we can see that Ahaz was not a good strategic thinker, but if I have a good tactical decision making process in place, then I know that I can identify what I need to do. I can identify the things I need to do those things, and I can identify the tactics and the procedures that I need to employ so that I can be that successful. So why not do these things and take these leadership tools and be that leader that you were always meant to be? Remember, don't forget to subscribe over here. Make sure that you share this on every medium that you're following this on.